Hello everyone. I am Alice of KHR Arts and Cloud Orchid Publishing, and today I want to talk to y'all about a particular book that is a childhood nostalgia piece for me. So this particular book is called Mieko and the Fifth Treasure. This is a very special book that I read when I was in elementary school, and surprisingly enough, this was actually a book that was required reading for our class. I feel like this was an incredibly important lesson that I learned in elementary school that later on prepped me for the larger lesson of what this story is about when I was in junior high and high school. So what exactly does that mean? This particular book is about a young Japanese girl during World War II. Specifically, she was living in Nagasaki, which is one of the places that was bombed during World War II. And unfortunately, she was harmed during one of these bomb drops and it disfigured her hand. And this was particularly devastating for her because she possessed what they called the fifth treasure. What that means is that she had all four of the other treasures: her calligraphy brush, her ink, her paper, her grinding stone for the ink, and the fifth treasure is the beauty in her heart to make beautiful calligraphy. Calligraphy is seen as an art form in Japan. It's not just a form of just writing out your grocery list. It can be something that is seen as a high art form. The art of writing these words and writing poems and doing them as beautifully as possible, as stylized as possible, is a highly prized art form in Japan. So for a very young girl to be very talented at that is an incredibly important thing for her and her family and the little village or town that she lives in. And so to suddenly have that gift taken away from her by her hand being disfigured is devastating. And that's how the book opens. So because their home is obliterated, they have to then move in with relatives who live out on the countryside on a farm, and Mieko has to go to a new school. And unfortunately, the children there are very mean, and they make fun of her and call her Monster Hand because her hand is so disfigured. And she struggles to even hold a calligraphy brush. She struggles to even just do the most basic writing tasks at school, which further gives the children reason to make fun of her. She ends up making friends with this child named Yoshi, and they start to have this really wonderful friendship, this bright spot in this dark part of her life where she believes to have lost the talent that she so covets, as well as lost her home, and as well as just lost her way of life. Now she's living in this completely different place with all these different people who are not very nice to her. That is a lot for a young girl to have to deal with all at once. So having a friend in her corner is just so crucial to her being able to move forward in this story. And what's beautiful about this story is it's about the adults in her life really stepping in to help her and tell her, don't listen to those kids. They're dumb kids. Who cares what they think? We know who you are. We know what you're capable of. Just keep trying. And at first she's like, I don't want to. What's the point? I just, draw sloppy, the most basic of calligraphy and it looks horrible. Why am I doing this? But they keep encouraging her. Just keep doing it. Just keep going. It's okay. Draw all of the sloppy calligraphy you need to. Just keep going. And so she does. And at the end of the book, it culminates in that there is a calligraphy contest at this school, and everybody's telling her that she needs to enter, and she's like, I am still nowhere near where I was before I was disfigured. Why are they telling me to enter this contest? I have no business entering this contest. And I won't give you all the spoiler because the ending is so sweet, and oh my god, as an adult, I'm just like, oh my heart. It is such a sweet, beautiful, happy ending. And it is absolutely worth reading. But what was especially important for me reading this book at such a young age, because it's not the idea of, overcoming obstacles or, dealing with a disability or dealing with bullying or, anything like that. There are plenty of books out there that also discuss those topics. What was so important that I read this book in elementary school is that it discussed what happened in Japan in World War II. And I feel like this is something that really gets glossed over in a lot of history books, especially today. today, as well as the fact that most people don't even know about this until they get to high school or even beyond that. So the fact that this was introduced to me at such a young age, and I don't want to say innocuous because it definitely was not innocuous, but in a very child-safe way, that it's, this very bad thing happened, and it happened to this girl in particular. It happened to lots of other people too, but we're going to focus on how the bad thing affected this girl. It didn't go into the horrors of war. It didn't go into why the war was happening or anything, just that it did. It did, and here's the impact it had on this particular girl and her particular family. And I feel like this is how you can present these really heavy, important topics to young children, is by just presenting them with just sometimes bad things happen in the world, and you just have to see how to keep moving forward with your life despite these bad things happening in the world. Those ideas are so important for young children in learning how to be resilient and learning to deal with that. Unfortunately, the world is an unfair place, and bad things outside of your control happen, as well as it also preps them for then when they start learning about this in more depth when they're older, such as when I first started learning about it more in depth in junior high, and then of course we went over it in even more detail when I was in high school. You're already prepped, that you already know, this is that thing. I remember reading about that. And so that it's not a surprise to you when you're older. Because I do feel that that's where some of this disbelief comes in for some of these things that have happened in history, that people don't necessarily believe these things happen because they don't want to believe they happen, and because they only hear about them once in a singular fashion, in one singular history class in high school or whatever, and then they never hear about it ever again. They never heard about it before, and they never hear about it ever again. In that sense, learning does seem rather unbelievable and unrealistic because, why wouldn't we, as we go along, learn about different things and then reinforce them? So having this reinforced for me really helped me to later on understand as we got more detailed and got more detailed and got more detailed. So I feel that this story does such a great job of that type of learning experience, as well as it's just a really, really good book. This particular book was written in 1994, so it was written in the mid-90s, and I am a terrible judge for, what age group would this be, but I can tell you, I do remember that I read this somewhere in, second or third grade. Take in mind, I was also an advanced reader, so I was in the advanced reader group as well, so, maybe this might be, better suited to, a fourth grader. I don't know. Use your best judgment, but this is definitely a book for elementary school kids. It's a very thin chapter book. It's definitely, once you get to junior high, this is a little bit below that reading level. So I hope y'all found this video helpful. If you did, please be sure to give it a like. And if you're new, subscribe. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.